what's happening here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we can get started. I would like to welcome everybody to the Moulakis lecture series on responsible engineering. This lecture was made possible with a generous fund by Lucky Vidma and his wife, Aubrey Ardima. And it is in the HERBS program for engineering, ethics, and society. Today we have the honor to host Dr. Ashok Srivastava. He is the Senior Vice President and Chief Data Officer at Intuit. Previously, he was the Vice President of Big Data and Artificial Intelligence Systems and the Chief Data Scientist at Verizon. Ashok is also an adjunct professor at Stanford. I thought I would mention this since we are a university. And he serves on a committee of the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, and on a congressionally mandated study on emerging trends in aviation safety. Ashok is a fellow of the IEEE, the American Association for the Advancements of Science, and the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. Further, he works with NASA. He led advanced technology programs in aerospace, space systems, and earth and space sciences. And the list just goes on. I cannot include everything. He is the author of over 100 research articles in data mining, machine learning, and text mining, and has edited several books on these subjects. He has over 30 patents awarded and several under file. So he's a very distinguished researcher, innovator, and visionary. And of course, he's also a distinguished engineering alumni here at CU Boulder. It is such an honor to have Ashok here, and he's going to give a talk entitled AI at an Inflection Point, Leading at the Intersection of Innovation and Ethics. And I'm going to hand this over to Ashok. And when we are done, we have a short survey with 5 questions. If you would be so kind, fill that out at the end of the talk. But let's welcome Ashok.
Thank you so much. Thank you for choosing to spend your evening with me on this cool night in Boulder. It was hot today, it was cold today, everything in between, which is what you would expect in Boulder. I know that because I am a Colorado native. I was born and raised not too far from here in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I remember so clearly the autumns here, the beautiful snow that would come in and then the bright sun, and how these things would always be juxtaposed on each other. And I just love being here in Colorado with all of you. So thank you for spending the time. Thank you for extending the honor to me to speak here about a subject that I think is very important, and that is the use of artificial intelligence and its effect on society and the ethical implications that come from that. This is something that we all are going to need to grapple with, not because we're scientists, not because we're engineers, not because we're in the humanities, but because we're people in a society. That's why we have to grapple with this. And I have to applaud the university and the administration for creating a program on ethics in engineering. I think that it is very, very telling about the culture that we have here at this university and about the forethought that people have in thinking about the issues that are to come, trying to solve them today so that we're not the victim of them tomorrow. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. We'll have adequate time for questions and answers. So as I was reflecting on this talk, I realized that some things are the same and some things do change. So, pop quiz. What changed? This is me in graduate school here at the University of Colorado not too long ago. Some of you might think it was ages and ages ago. I would argue it was not so long ago. So what changed? Obviously, the hairdo. What stayed the same is the amazing sense of fashion. Wouldn't you agree? Right? This is me in my lab in the engineering center on the first floor before the extension was built. You can see out the window to my right there. That's my computer. And that's when I started doing machine learning in my master's degree. I think it was in the early master's program here. I was a PhD student in electrical engineering, and I was focusing on control theory. And if you're familiar with control theory, you know that one of the key aspects of it is that you have a machine over here. Let's say like it's an energy plant. That's a classic example. And then you've got another machine over here. That's the controller. You want to build the controller so that the energy plant does what you want. That's the field of control theory. It gives rise to beautiful mathematics. And this is the reason that I chose to work in the field. But a question occurred to me at the time. What happens if you don't know the dynamics of the thing you're trying to control? There are some assumptions that are made. You can assume that a set of differential equations governs that system. And then based on that assumption, you can create controllers, and it leads to really beautiful mathematics. And I was really engrossed in it. But what if you don't have that fundamental system there? What if you don't have a deep understanding of that system? What if it's, quote, the economy, not an energy plant that you built? What if it's the economy? What if it's a set of people? What if it is something else, the internet? How would you work on it? What kind of control would you build? And that's what gave rise to my interest in machine learning. And fortunately, at this university, there was and there is a machine learning team. And I was very fortunate to be part of that. And so that's how I came in. So some things are the same and some things do change. So my path is varied. This is kind of chronological, kind of not. Obviously, I studied here. I got my bachelor's, master's, PhD here. I worked down the street on Broadway at NIST from the time I was a sophomore in college till the time I graduated with my PhD. Amazing place. I worked on superconductivity there. Here at the university, I was part of something called RAPLine, if you've heard of it. I don't know what it's called today, but it's a crisis line where people who are in trouble in their lives can call, and I offered help. My code name there was Alex because I thought Ashok would be too identifying. And so my name was Alex, and I would talk on the phone with people to see if I could help them out. And I did that for about 18 months. I went to the Santa Fe Institute and IBM and a bunch of other places. What you should glean from this path is that it is a varied path, but there's a consistency through it all. And that consistency is curiosity. It's an understanding and appreciation for data and also for machine learning. Three things that I really love: people, data, and artificial intelligence. And so that's the thread that guides me through this area. As Anya mentioned, I'm also involved very much in the field of aviation. From my time at NASA until today, I'm heavily involved with aviation, particularly aviation safety. Why? Because it brings three things together: people, billions that fly on commercial airplanes, technology, data, and artificial intelligence. So with that, I'm going to now turn to ethics and how ethics plays a role. Because whenever you have people, you should be thinking about ethics. Whenever you have people, you should be thinking about ethics. When you introduce technology into the mix, you really need to not only think about people, but you need to think about how that technology is going to impact people. Positively is the way engineers often think about it, but there can be harms, there can be negative consequences. And I think it's very important that we think about those equally in order to in addition to the positives. And I want to point out something that's extremely obvious, which is what often dinner time speakers do, which is to say that humans have been thinking about this for a very long time across many cultures around the world. It's not the provenance of just one culture. It's not the provenance of just one gender. It's not the provenance of just one point of view. It's the provenance of all humans that have been thinking about this and have been thinking about the ethical implications of their lives and of the technologies that they build, whatever that might be, in different ways. And the reason I start this off is to say that in the position that I have at Intuit, which is to run artificial intelligence, data, and analytics at the company, which is a very big and broad charter. My team has on the order of 1,300 people spread across the world, working on all aspects, I would argue, of AI, data, and analytics, all aspects of it. In that context, we must not think that we are also going to simply figure out ethics and code it up and put it into production, and all problems are solved. And the reason I phrase it that way is because in the Silicon Valley, which is where I live, I see a lot of this type of thinking that all that needs to be done is that you somehow add on a bit of ethics onto your engineering system and then step back and let things proceed. And I have a very deep and fundamental concern with that, because I don't question the motives or the inclination or the ideas that those people have. But when you subtract the humans out of that equation, what you get is only a partial solution. And those of us that do engineering realize that partial solutions are often faulty. And so we have to have the humans there. And we have to go back to the principles that ethics are based on. And this is where history and literature and music and art and the humanities play a critical role. And the reason that I want to point this out is that engineering devoid of those things is only a partial solution. And one thing I love about the work that's happening here, to the degree that I understand it at CU, is that we're trying to bring these things together, to have the humanities, to have the arts, and to have economics and the arts and sciences merge to some degree with engineering so that we have a holistic view. Because when we have that, then we can get a global view. And I think this is one of the most critical things. Now, as we get into it, let me first define what artificial intelligence is. There are many definitions, but I want to give you one so that you can orient yourselves to the way I think about it. So this is the simulation of human intelligence. It doesn't say the replication. It doesn't say the substitution. It says the simulation of human intelligence as done by machines. And it has different facets. I've chosen 3 here to talk about. Learning. So this is the ability to take data and use that data to update one's or the machine's understanding of the world around it. And this was my introduction into machine learning. This idea that I could take an algorithm, which had certain parameters in it, I could tweak those parameters, and somehow it would learn the behavior of the data. It's a beautiful idea. Not an idea unique to machine learning, I have to say. Statisticians have been thinking about it since the time of R.A. Fisher, and even before that, Newton and the physicists were thinking about this from kind of the basics of science. And this is, again, why we always have to, in my opinion, look back and see what our forebears have thought of. Reasoning, drawing conclusions from known facts or information. This, so far, has been the provenance primarily of human beings. I would argue today it still is. But there's a lot of change that's occurring in this area of reasoning, where we can see that machines can and do reason. When I was at NASA, we had one of the largest reasoning systems that I knew of. This was a Bayesian network that had a few hundred nodes that could reason on prognostics, on specifically on the lifetime, remaining useful life of batteries. And at the time, this was a very advanced thing. Today, I would argue that it was like doing arithmetic compared to advanced math. Today, the type of reasoning that you can see the major large language models doing is really astonishing. And I mean that out of respect for the people that built it, also as a person who has worked in the field, also as a person who is implementing these technologies. It's remarkable to see the degree of reasoning they can do. But there are limitations that we need to know about. Third, adaptation. This idea that these machines can change and learn from their environment, and because of that, they can adapt to new situations. Again, a remarkable capability that AI possesses. But there are numerous, myriad ethical issues. Just one quick search on your favorite search engine reveals these and many and many and many more issues. Let me take you through a few of them. Black artists say that AI shows bias with algorithms erasing their history. Erasing. Microsoft made a deal to help restart 3 Mile Island, the nuclear reactor. Start up a nuclear reactor. Why? So that we can power GPUs, which are the fundamental building blocks of the hardware that runs AI, so that we can do more AI and more reasoning. The next one, the Vox says, AI already uses as much energy as a small country. And the story has just begun, by the way. This is not some conclusion of AI, like, yay, we've got AI, and it's in operation, and now we're using the energy of a small country. We're just starting on the process, and it's already using the amount of energy that a small country operates. And so we're creating nuclear power plants to power those so that we can do more AI. That's what's happening today. Think of the ethical issues just with that one statement. Think about the ethical issues with Black artists saying their history is being erased. Algorithmic bias, AI bias from the BBC, how algorithms can discriminate. So people have employed and thought of employing algorithms to analyze resumes to say, is this person right for the job? Seems like a good thing, but what you find is that the algorithms can be biased in favor of people with certain sounding names, white names, in favor of doctors being male, in favor of artists being of a certain nationality, in favor of music of a certain type, thereby, again, erasing large parts of humanity. There are ethical issues involved with these types of things. Image generation, amazing capability when you see it, but when you see the bias that can come out of it, it is extraordinary. So we must grapple with these types of things. If we don't, as a society, it will be done to us. And we will find that ethical violations in our mind today happen rampantly, and that we have no antidote for it. Again, that's why I point back and thank you all who are part of this community for thinking about AI and ethics in general in the field of engineering. So it is going to have a profound and far-reaching impact on society, on industry, and on governance. And we see the manifestation of that happening today. I have the great privilege to meet with policymakers from the US government, from the state governments, from governments abroad, ambassadors, and so forth. And I talk to them about the criticality of understanding the ethical dilemmas, but then also the opportunity that AI plays. I don't want to say, as some are saying, that AI is just going to lead to harms with some benefits. I actually think the benefits can be profound as well. And it's that balance that is very important for us to strike, to understand where it can help us as a society move forward, where it can help us not forget the history, but actually amplify the history, where it can help us not supplant one race with another, but actually celebrate all, where it can help us understand the beauty of all genders and not just one or two. These are some of the things that I think are very profound. Some have said, I have said, and others have said that AI is like the new electricity. If that's true, electricity had a profound impact on society, therefore AI will also. Here's an IMF study that I came across that I found incredibly compelling. I wanted to share it with you just to show one aspect of it and the impact of AI on the workforce. So today, the IMF estimates, this is a study that just came out a few months ago, that 40% of global employment is exposed to AI. And in advanced economies like the US economy, about 60% of jobs might be impacted by AI. 60% of jobs might be impacted by AI. In emerging markets and low-income countries, AI exposure is expected to be about 40% and 26% respectively. So this is the IMF doing a study today showing the global nature of the impact of AI on jobs. Jobs are arguably the fabric of society, of modern society today. And so if you take something and you impact 40% of it today, imagine the compounding effect of this tomorrow. And this is why, again, it's important. I wanted to spend some time talking about the motivation so that you can see in the next set of slides, I'm going to be talking about some of the work that we're doing at Intuit that I'm very proud to be part of to address some of these. Let me start by saying I don't claim to have solved all of these problems, but what I do claim is that we're putting enormous energy into addressing them and into doing at least what we think is the right thing, and the we being people, by the way. So engineers are thinking about this very hard right now. Let me add that others are equally thinking about this very hard. When we set up our responsible AI practice at Intuit, we didn't start with engineering. We actually started with ethics. We had our team look into medical ethics, into the history of ethics. We met with people who are in the field of ethics, who think about these things, who have written about them, so that we could have a modicum, a tiny bit of education about where these ideas came from and how they should impact the way we think about it at a company like ours. So we started there, and I point this out because I do think it's very important to think about things from the very beginning and then step your way forward, rather than assuming that we already know the answers. We have to just do a few tweaks and everything will be fine. I think it's very important that we do that, and so a lot of people are thinking about this. Let me give you an introduction to Intuit. Some of you might know it, some of you might not, so I just wanted to give you an opening to what Intuit is. Intuit is a 40-year young company. It was started in the early 80s by a person named Scott Cook. I know Scott very well. He has an office at our building. I see him very often. Very kind, very humble, very brilliant individual. The mission of Intuit is to power prosperity, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a moment. We have 100 million customers, around 100 million customers around the world. Some of you might know TurboTax. We have Credit Karma and QuickBooks and MailChimp. Credit Karma and MailChimp are recent acquisitions. TurboTax has been around for quite a long time, and QuickBooks has also. These products are created to fulfill our mission, which is to power prosperity around the world. Many companies, many organizations have lofty slogans, and I admit this is a lofty slogan. However, what I'll also tell you is that this is something that I know full well that virtually everyone at Intuit embodies. They imbibe it. We live it. This is important to us. This is why one of the reasons that I work at Intuit. When I saw it painted on the walls at the headquarters, I thought, that's interesting. That's an interesting mission. As I interviewed with the company, I could see that it was real. I met with the CEO, with the CTO, with many other people in the top leadership of the company, and I saw this is not a slogan. This is something that they really believe in, and they want to make it real, and I wanted to be part of that journey, and I'm very, very proud to be part of that journey. We have a history of self-disruption. So we started with DOS, and in case you don't know what DOS is, it's called a disk operating system. It was the popular thing in the 1980s, and yes, when I was at NIST, I used DOS, and it was exciting. Then we moved to Windows, and the eras of technology from Windows to web to mobile and cloud to AI. Intuit again and again has reinvented itself. I believe that it's one of the few software companies that has made it this long from its inception. Microsoft being another, Intuit being another, and SAS, which is a statistical software company from North Carolina, is the other one. That's not a public company so far as I know. It wasn't, but Intuit and Microsoft and just a handful of others are software companies that have made it this long. And the way you do this is by disrupting yourself. Each time it disrupted, and I joined in about 2017. We were about this size. I remember we're about 7,000 people when I joined, about $3.5 billion. Today we're about $16 billion and 17,000 employees, and this place is a rocket ship. It is an absolute rocket ship. It is so fun to work there. The number one reason that I love working there is the people. I love the people that work there. I love the mission. I love the company, and I'm very, very delighted to be part of it. But we're in the state of change, constant change. And the state of change that we're in today is in the field of artificial intelligence. And I'm very proud to lead the change here. Here, what we're doing is thinking about how AI, how data and analytics, the three things that I'm heavily involved with, that I lead, can be used to change and reimagine the way consumers, small business, and mid-market businesses, mid-sized businesses, do their finances. Because we know that by helping them, we're going to help society, and that is part of our mission. And some important statistics here to motivate this. You may know that only 40% of Americans, 40% in the world's greatest and most wealthy nation in the world, 40% of Americans have $400 in the bank in case something comes up, in case they have to pay for a flat tire, in case they have to take care of their kids' education, in case they have an injury. Only 40%, and that's prior to the pandemic. So in that context, using AI and using data to help people make better financial decisions is a very compelling mission. It's something that we can really focus on, and that is where we're focused. And as we go forward, we're going to be focusing on it even more. Our strategy is to deliver for consumers, small business, mid-market customers, and we measure our success based on three things. Do we reduce the amount of work that you have to do when you're running your business or when you're doing your personal finances? Do we give you more money in your pocket, like when you're doing your taxes? Do we do this with confidence so that when you're done with your taxes or your bookkeeping, your marketing program, or whatever you're doing, that you say, I feel like I did it right? That's hard to measure. It's hard to measure, and the way we do that is we talk to customers and we learn from them. Our investments are extraordinary. This just gives you an idea of the size and scale of what we're operating. About 95 petabytes of data, 60 billion machine learning predictions per day, et cetera. This is to not only wow you with big numbers, but to say that the implications of AI here are extraordinary, because we are interacting with a large number of people across a large number of domains, and we need to make sure that what we're doing is actually accretive to whatever their goals are from a financial perspective. And we do this in AI primarily through something called Intuit Assist. So wherever you see that cool logo, that logo indicates where generative AI or artificial intelligence, mostly generative AI, is interacting with customers. And we're doing it across the board. About 30 million people today are using these experiences. And in those experiences, we want to make sure that we are having the right ethics and the right governance, the right responsible AI happening at scale. And that's where the trick comes in. That's where the difficulty comes in. If you're doing it with 1 or 2 people, ethics it's important, but it takes on a very different frame than when you're doing it with 100 million people, and when you're doing it 60 billion times a day, and when you're doing it across 600 million interactions per year that are AI powered. The numbers and the scale and the context of this is very extraordinary. One of the decisions that we made very early on is that we said that artificial intelligence is going to be used to augment human intelligence and not to replace it. One of the key things that we have done at Intuit is created one of the world's largest expert networks. This is where you, as a customer, if you so choose, can call Intuit, talk to a real human being, and that person can help you do your taxes. And that expert is augmented with AI, not replaced with AI, but augmented with AI. But if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and it's April 14th and you can't get somebody on the phone, because tax day is the 15th of April, by the way, if that is happening to you, then you can work with AI, or if you're on the go, you can work with AI. If you don't want to talk to a person, you can work with AI. And so that is the strategy that we're taking. So each time you see that logo, it's one of those 2 things. It's either direct to you from the machine, or it is augmenting an expert direct to you. So how do we think about AI and ethics when we're operating at that scale? That's what I'm going to take you through. That is the point of this talk. First, we want to make sure that our employees at the company know what AI is, makes sense, and they know what it means to do responsible AI. Because we have thousands of developers, several thousand developers, on the order of 7,000 developers all over the world. And as they're doing their engineering, as they're writing code, they need to know what AI is and what the responsible use of that AI is. Product managers similarly, business people similarly, they need to know. So we have company-wide training to help our workforce do this, and we're investing very heavily in this. One of the first decisions I made when I joined Intuit was to start an AI training program, and that has blossomed into this. We educate regularly on responsible AI principles. Those are published on our website. If you want to see them, I'll be covering them. Code of conduct and ethics, and all applicable policies. So this is something that we really invest in. I am driving this like you can't believe, because I think it's incredibly important. And the responsible use, but then also the exciting use of AI. Because as I said, there's a lot of benefit that can come from this at our scale. What are some of the cool things that we can do with AI? Data stewardship. As the Chief Data Officer, data is the #1 thing that I think of all the time, and we want to make sure that data is properly stewarded, and I use that word very carefully. What this means is that if you are an Intuit customer, the data is yours, we are the steward of it, and we're going to do the right thing with it, and we're going to keep you informed and heavily involved with all of these types of issues. Understanding the customer, very important. What do customers want and need? I mentioned Scott Cook, our founder. He started this very wonderful program at Intuit called Follow Me Home, where you literally follow a person into their world and you see how they're using our software. And you take notes and you ask them questions. I do this once a week. And I spend my time just listening to what customers say. It's a very important discipline to have. And through that customer obsession comes an understanding of what problems we want to solve, and thereby what the AI and data can be used. So we do this at scale. I'm very happy to tell you that it works. People who use our platform have 1.9 times household savings rate compared to people that don't. Small businesses that use our platform are 19 points more likely to be successful than those that don't. We measure these things. My team is the one that measures those numbers, and we're going to continue to drive them up. We have a platform mindset. I've taken you through this a little bit. We have a lot of patents on this, about 1,000 patents filed in this area since I joined the company. And we have mission-based teams. This is where multidisciplines come together. So here at this university, we have many disciplines, probably in this audience, from engineering, from the humanities, from the liberal arts, all coming together to think about ethics. That's the way we do it at Intuit as well. We create mission-based teams. These are teams where there are engineers, there are AI scientists, there are product managers, business people, people from the legal team, people from the security team, people who have different points of view, people who have different backgrounds, who are diverse in all the ways diversity matters, who come together and who think about how to make better products and solve the problems that our customers face. And we do this fast. So we have increased our development velocity by a factor of 8 in the last 4 years. That means the number of releases that an engineer creates per week has gone up by a factor of 8 compared to where it was 4 years ago. Does this mean that we make our engineers type faster? No. Does it mean that we're on them 24 hours a day telling them to work harder? No. What it means is that we have created processes and systems and a platform that allows them to develop with speed and with confidence so that they can do it right. And this is where also we start to deploy some of our AI capabilities. So let me take you through the responsible AI principles that we have, and then I'll talk about our capabilities. When we talk about responsible AI, we're talking about the principles that we use to develop and operate at scale and do it responsibly while we're helping people in their financial lives. We have the following principles. We want to make sure that we're powering prosperity, enhancing human talent, doesn't say replace, enhance human talent, that we are fair, that we're holding a high degree of accountability and transparency in maintaining privacy and security. And the way we do this is by making sure that we're creating automated and personalized experiences where that makes sense, and providing confidence and informed actions where it makes sense. The way we deploy this at scale, this is probably one of the most important technical innovations that we have made in the area of AI, responsible AI, governance, data governance, and so forth, is the creation of what we call GenOS. So those of you who use a computer know probably that your computers have an operating system on them. This is an abstraction that allows, let's say you're using Windows or a Mac. It allows developers to interact with the operating system, and the operating system interacts with the hardware and the other deeper software components so that the developer can create applications like Word or Windows, or not Windows, but Word or PowerPoint or something like that. And you can use it, and you're completely abstracted away from the hardware and all the issues that are there. Same thing on Mac. Mac OS allows you to do that, allows developers to do that. When we started investing in AI, one of the things that I and other people in the AI team felt is that this was going to be a big deal, that AI was going to revolutionize the world, and we have to do it responsibly. That's what we thought. And the way we said we were going to do it is we're going to create GenOS. This is a capability. It has many components to it, but it's essentially an operating system that abstracts away the platform so that thousands of developers can develop on it, Intuit developers can develop on it, and they get for free, quote unquote, capabilities that include governance, security, risk, fraud, privacy, all built in. It includes ways of evaluating AI capabilities, ways of doing planning and orchestration of capabilities so that you don't have to write code, declarative code, to say if X, then do A, if Y, then do B, if Z, then do C. Instead, you have the large language model do it, you have the AI do it, but you govern it through GenOS. It includes GenStudio, which allows people from around the company to interact with the large language model directly. It includes GenUX, which is a set of components, about 140 components, that allows the developers to interact with customers through fixed approaches rather than completely free or flexible. And so these are some of the ways that we govern and manage development of AI at scale. The reason that I say this is that if you are operating at the scale we are, you need to build capabilities that will scale with the customer base and with the developer base. You must do that. However, we didn't just leave it at that. We also have a very powerful AI governance team. I'm part of that. Other key executives from Intuit are part of that. And together, we look at what is happening in GenOS. We do it all the time. I did it this morning, and we will continue to do it in order to understand what is happening in GenOS, how is it operating at scale, what are the issues that are coming up, and what do we need to do to remediate them, what do we need to do to extend them, how can we make them robust. And we do this in conjunction with everyone that I mentioned before. And this allows us to learn fast, it allows us to adapt quickly, and it allows us to do things at scale, which is what you need to do when you're deploying AI at the scale that we're doing. So what does the future of AI hold? There are some prognostications that are occurring that the future is bleak. Some say that the future is fraught with peril, and the reason they say that is that they can see that AI can have many harms with it. I do agree that there are many harms that can come from AI, but with proper governance, as with any technology, let me emphasize, as with any technology, with proper governance, you can do miracles. Let's go back. I was walking by Old Main this morning. I think the building was built in the mid-1800s, if I'm not mistaken. And I was thinking, if I was in a classroom in the mid-1800s, what would I be thinking about? Probably there would be a gas lamp on the wall. It would be flickering. And probably somebody would be saying something about electricity coming, and it was going to change the world. And probably people had no idea of the ramifications of those changes back in Old Main in the mid-1800s. Here we're in the early 2000s, and we're talking about AI as though it were electricity. We're not in Old Main because it's being renovated. We're here, but we are at the same point, I would argue. And there are many harms that can come from electricity. That's why we don't stick our finger in the socket. But there's regulation to prevent us from creating sockets that will prevent me from sticking my finger in it, right? Similarly, we need to have regulation to prevent the harms from AI so that the power of AI can be unleashed, so that we can lift up all boats, so that we can lift up humanity, right? That is what can come from this technology if we govern it right. If we don't, as a society, this is not a statement at Intuit, as a society, if we don't govern it properly, we might find that we are continuously sticking our finger in the proverbial light plug and electrocuting ourselves, and that will be not good. That's a bad outcome. But we're in charge as human beings. We can change it, we can mold it, if we are engaged, if we educate ourselves. And again, tying back to the importance of this program at CU, you all are trying to educate the next technology leaders, the next leaders in society. You're trying to do that, and I applaud that. So what does the future of AI hold? Well, agentic AI. If you follow the flurry of press releases as I do, if you read the paper as I do, if you think about these things, one of the things that you'll see is a lot of people are talking about agentic AI. What agentic AI is an artificial intelligence that does work on your behalf with your permission. And the work that's being done is not just a simple automation. It's actually very complex workflows that are done automatically. These workflows, for instance, could be things like in the medical domain. Patient comes in, readings are taken, now a large set of diagnostics are done, and then recommendations are made to a client, perhaps with a doctor there, perhaps not with a doctor there. That is an example of an agentic workflow. Another example of an agentic workflow that we're doing at Intuit, which is much closer to reality today. In fact, it's in production, is cash flow management. So if you're familiar with running a small business, I've run multiple small businesses, you know that one of the most important things is to make sure there's enough money at the end of the month to pay your rent and your workers and the other things. We're building agentic workflows that can dynamically process AR and AP, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and make predictions for you so that you know what's happening in your accounts. This is truly an agentic workflow because the machine must reason across a very large number of accounts, very large number of data sets in order to make those predictions, and then in order to make the AR-AP resolve. Some of the other things that we're doing, dynamically providing personalized answers and insights. This is something that we're developing very rapidly so that if you don't understand your finances, you can actually talk or interact with an AI system and it'll help you understand it. I would use this all the time. I'm pretty good at finances, but I tell you, I would use this all the time, and I'm pushing the teams to build this, and we're doing other types of automations here. This is the future. This is a future in where AI is making decisions. At Intuit, AI will make decisions with the permission of the customer. If you're an Intuit customer, know that the AI will make decisions only with your permission. But that is something that we are doing. Not everyone will do that. And you need to think, we as a society need to think about the implications there. So as future leaders, we all need to be thinking about how these things blend together. When I was researching this, the Moulakis lecture, I read the foundation of this lecture, the one that I'm giving now. And I have to say, I was amazed by the forethought of this individual, and I applaud him and whoever thought of creating this program here. Because the idea that he and others had was to think about the implications of ethics on engineering and to bring in the humanities, bring in the liberal arts, bring in the social sciences to help think through the issues that engineers are going to face. And I really applaud that. I would like to be part of that. I would like to think that I'm part of that, and I applaud whoever is part of that here at the university. Here are some of the skills that I think are important for future leaders in AI. There is a lot here. I'm not going to read through them, but there is a lot here. We are at the fulcrum of change of society at large. That is what is happening in AI, and these are just a few of the skills that are required, in my opinion. I'm going to focus on the last column, analytical skills. Notice it doesn't say know lots of math. Notice it doesn't say as like be a super fast coder. It doesn't say that. First thing, be a critical thinker. Second, be a strong collaborator. Be adaptable. Win together. Win together. Bring people along on the journey. Don't make claims that aren't true. These are the types of things that I think are going to be most important for AI leaders. The rest of it is clearly important, but I think that the analytical skills, the ethical skills are the ones that are going to be paramount going forward. Many people are enamored with technology. Few are actually interested in the ethical implications of it. So with that, I will pause and see if anyone has a question. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ashok.
Yes.
I will be handing around the microphone.
So before we begin, this is what I call a AAA session. It stands for Ask Ashok Anything. I do these frequently all over the world, and so you all have a AAA session with me.
Thank you. Very interesting. I'm a TurboTax user. So can you give me some your talk is really good, but it's very, very general, high level.
Yeah.
Can you give me some specific examples of how I might experience the use of AI decisions and so on when I'm using TurboTax?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for being a customer, and I don't say that lightly. I appreciate that, and we appreciate that. So when you're doing using TurboTax in the last tax season, we launched to over 20 million people the ability to get insights into the refunds and to understand what the impact of your taxes are, whether it be refunds or whether you're paying. And this was powered by AI experiences, and it was operating at scale. Other places that we use AI, we've built what we call a knowledge engine. The US tax code just by itself is literally 80,000 pages long. We have to convert that into computer code, and we have to do it correctly. We've built a remarkable knowledge engineering system. I don't claim credit for this. This was built before I came to the company by remarkably innovative people who developed the capability to take tax code and turn it into computer code with human assistance. What we're doing now is using AI to accelerate that process. A third place that we use AI in TurboTax is in personalization. So as you go through the TurboTax experience, the screens that you see, we try to minimize the number of screens that you see and only present relevant screens, put screens together in such a way that you have a quick experience. I'm a TurboTax user, and I can see that happening, and this is another place that it happens. So those are three examples where it is. If you'd like to read more, we have a press release that came out 3 weeks ago that describes it in more detail, a few weeks ago. Yes?
Yeah, thank you. This is a really interesting learn about what Intuit is doing. I've attended many of the AI symposiums or conferences that have happened recently. This is the first one where I've seen ethics to be the core and the center of it. Seems like Intuit is very focused on it. And one of the things you mentioned is probably the solution is regulations and how they can solve this.
Yeah.
How do you think in this polarized world, the regulations are very local, and therefore we might have something in the US, but China wants to compete in the AI.
Yes.
And they would see advantage of not regulating it so that they can have more capabilities around it. Like, how do we, has Intuit thought about areas like that, and how do we navigate those issues?
Yes, so I'm very fortunate to be heavily involved with policy. So I go to Washington and I meet with lawmakers, people from other countries who have different points of view on ethics, and I meet with members of the state Senate in California, governors, and so forth. So heavily involved with that. You're right that other countries, other people, rightfully have different points of view on ethics. The US is the leader in AI right now. There are other countries that are also making heavy investments, but the US is the leader in it. In my opinion, and I've shared this broadly, I've shared this in sessions with all the ones that I've mentioned before. What I feel strongly about is that we need to be very much aware of what our values are as a nation, as embodied in the Constitution, as embodied in the Bill of Rights, which means that we have to know our history, right? We have to know what those documents mean and what the implications of those documents are on us as a society. When it says, we the people, what does this mean? When it makes these proclamations, what does it mean to us today? So that's the first thing. And we have to know that not everyone shares these views, and that's okay. But because of our leadership position in AI, I believe that if we have the right policy, if we have the right governance, others will contribute, and others will also benefit from that, and others will benefit from that, right? And I think it's incredibly important that we do this. What I see is that there is an appetite to talk about it right now, and some people are very engaged in trying to make things happen. But because of the issues, to put it mildly, that we see in politics today, we're not seeing the convergence of these. One of our stated points of view that's public is that this should be a federal regulation, not a set of state regulations, because it'll be very difficult for a small business to navigate. If you're an AI startup and they say, good news, you've got 50 regulations, one from each state, throw in a few extra, 53 regulations that you have to deal with, it's going to be very complicated for a small business. For a large business, you know, they have the power, they have the wherewithal, they have the money, they have the scale to deal with something like that. Small businesses will not. So this is why, one of the reasons that we argue for a federal approach to it. And I think that, frankly, this is also a matter of national security. This is something where AI is not something that can be, for instance, governed by one state, and then the rest of the states follow it because they tend to do that. That's a model that has worked in other places. It works for data, it's worked for environmental regulations and so forth. But in AI, it's a little bit different. So I really do personally feel that it's important that we have a federal regulation. And you know, we try to educate, we try to help craft such policies, but it's slow. And AI is moving incredibly fast. Weekly changes, and there we're talking about yearly or, you know, I don't know. We haven't seen regulation yet. And I'm a strong believer in regulation. I think that it's a good thing.
I'm a reporter with the CU Independent, so I have a few questions. I'll try and limit them as much as possible so everybody else has a chance. First, jobs are really important to all of us. And I was wondering how AI has affected job growth within Intuit.
How it has increased job growth.
Okay.
Definitely it has.
Perfect. Can you give some specific examples of ethical concerns regarding AI and how they've been addressed within your company?
Sure. So when I was talking about GenOS, what I said is that we have a two-prong approach. One is the technical approach, which is the GenOS approach, which is to say that we're going to create guardrails, security, risk, fraud controls within the operating system so that as developers develop, there are guardrails. And the second thing I said is that as a governance team, we're going to be looking at what is happening in GenOS, and we're going to be monitoring and modifying the behavior as things come up. And so what we're noticing is that as we put these capabilities at scale and we look at these dashboards, we see that GenOS actually works, that it actually does properly affect the traffic and the experiences that people are having. And then we also go in and we make modifications to it. As for specific issues that we've seen, we see that, and this is not new news, that large language models hallucinate, that they can make plausible statements that are actually not true. By the way, human beings can do that as well. And so as we see that, in GenEval, which is one of the components of GenOS, we actually make modifications to that to reduce it. And I can tell you that we're actually inventing new math to reduce the chance of that. And that is a little foreshadowing for what is to come.
Perfect. And one more. This is a personal question about your beliefs.
Absolutely.
AI and technology can weaken our abilities within certain fields. Scientists depend on calculators, and students are now using technology to write papers. Do you think AI could hurt our abilities to create and innovate?
I think it can, yes. But I think it can also help us innovate more. It depends on how we deal with it as a society and how we understand it. Look, if we as a society cede our ability to think to a machine that can literally fit on this, I do this for drama, if we literally do that, what is to say of what's to come, right? But if we say, I have this amazing thing here, but I can still think, and I can still determine fact from fiction, and I can still determine whether or not something that I'm reading, even though it's printed out in beautiful script, if it's true or not, through multiple sources, through all the things that we learn in journalism, then I think we're going to be okay. But the jury is out. We have to see that happen. We have to see that as society that we can think critically about these things. That's why I focused on the last column in that chart. And I said, critical thinking is most important. If we give that up, if you all give that up, if I give that up, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But if we don't, I think it's going to be great. Thank you for coming, and thank you for the insightful questions.
Hey, thanks for the talk.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak to the difficulties of upholding ethical commitments while you're working in a for-profit company. An example.
About which questions? I didn't get it.
What are the difficulties of upholding ethical commitments while working at a for-profit company? And an example would be interesting, if possible. And how does the possibility of the sort of tension between ethics and profit influence your optimism about AI?
Yeah. So I view that for-profit and ethics are not necessarily in conflict. I believe that the question behind your question, or the assertion behind your question, is that these are necessarily at odds. I think they're only at odds if you put them at odds. I think that if you have proper governance and proper leadership, they're not at odds. So that's a fundamental assumption that I'm making. With that assumption, I absolutely can see that some might say that let's abandon the ethical principles and only go for profit. This is not what we have done at Intuit, and I know that full well. I absolutely know that. I am in all the meetings. I see it. I know the people up close. That's not what we're doing. What we are doing instead is saying that as a for-profit company, what can we do to accelerate three things, the three customer benefits? No work, more money, complete confidence. The goals that we have literally measure that. And that's the way we focus, and we realize and we know that if we can deliver on those benefits, that we will be doing very well. And I think time has shown that that's true, and we need to continue to do that. Thank you for the question.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for the talk. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to follow up on his question more or less. I'm not a US citizen, and so I had experience with TurboTax, for example. And you're calling to action in this talk, right? Like telling us to think of the underlying ethics, to be a critical thinker. This was the main point of the talk, right? And so I was thinking, did TurboTax truly solve my problem? Like I never had to deal with taxes in any country that I had to live, but I did have to in the US, right?
Yeah.
And well, doing the taxes is actually a consequence of complex bureaucracy and administrative work that is not unique, but quite characteristic to the US system. So if we're truly critical thinkers, as you said, my question would be, should we invite people to rely on tools such as TurboTax, or rather think why there's this hole in the system? Why is this? So, is it so complicated to do the taxes? Why have we accepted that paying a for-profit company is normal? Like I view this as a hole in the system. But if we are truly a critical thinker, how can I just accept it, right? Like, is it ethical to turn a citizen into a customer of a service that should be maybe covered in just basic human rights?
Yeah, I understand the question, and here's the way I think about it. Yes, people should think, in a free society, people should think about what the laws and regulations are, should think about taxation, absolutely. They should think about ways to simplify the tax code, how the tax code impacts others, and so forth. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. Given where we are today, then, the question is, what should we do? And the answer that we have is that we should put tools in the hands of people so that to the best degree possible, we can simplify what they're doing so that they can move on and do other things. Now, does this preclude further simplification? No, it doesn't. But that is not something that is within the purview of any company. That's in the purview of the people and the people that they elect and the way those elected officials make decisions on taxation. And that's the way it is, and that's the way it works. At other countries, they have different approaches because of the history and because of the way things have developed, and I think that there you have a different approach. But in the US, this is the approach. Literally, the IRS, what to say of the 50 states, what to say of all the municipalities, 80,000 pages long. So that's a lot to deal with. And I remember when I used to do my taxes as a student, 1040 EZ form, I used to call my dad because I was worried that I was going to do it wrong. And that is the reality that we are trying to solve. Okay, we've got a lot of questions here, but if y'all
maybe
want to
one
stay,
more
I'll
question.
stay, but if you want to leave.
How about
totally
one
leave.
more question,
One
and
more.
I'll give that question to one of the Herbst faculty members.
All right.
So I'd like to transform my AAA session into Ask Alex Anything. And I'm really curious about if you could just speak briefly to how your 18 months working on the crisis line has impacted everything you've presented today.
What a wonderful question. Ask Alex Anything. Alex is the name of my boss, so I was going to say, am I supposed to take Alex's persona? But ask Alex. It influenced me greatly. It did. So when I was a student at in the engineering school, I was a pretty good student. I studied math. I loved math and engineering and all those types of things. And but I could see that there was a whole world out there that I didn't know. I could see it in the people around me. I saw very tragic events unfold in front of me with other students, where people lost their lives, people were devastated by drugs, by other things, and I wanted to understand it. And as I invested in understanding it through the crisis line and through other things that I did at the time and still do, what I realized is that the world is highly complex, and that simple solutions, while they might be elegant on paper, do not necessarily solve the issues that people face. And the way this informs me today is to think very critically about what we're doing and what I'm doing in my job and as a member of the AI and data community. What am I doing? What are the harms that could come to somebody? What are the benefits that could come to somebody? How can I amplify the latter and reduce the former? This is one of the things that came from my time there. But I have to say that I think that this is a project. In other words, this is something that one must continue to invest in over the long run.
Thank you, Ashok. We are concluding our session now, and let's give Ashok a round of applause.
Thank you. We've been together for a long time this evening. I want to thank you for your attention. I want to applaud the team for thinking through all of this and for bestowing on me this great honor to be able to speak.
Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Yeah.